In today's new episode of Missing, we speak with Wilveria, the sister of missing person Shelton Sanders. Shelton Sanders went missing from Columbia, South Carolina on June 19th, 2001 and has not been located. We recently met Wilveria at CrimeCon and we invited her back onto the show. She gives us a great recounting of the story of his disappearance, and we hope you find it informative and helpful. Please share if you can, and if you have any information, please call the Richland County Sheriff at 803-576-3000. We're going to break quick for commercial here, and we'll be right back with Wilveria. Wilveria, welcome back to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Tim. Thank you.
It's great to have you on. First of all, you have top 3 of my favorite names of people who have come on the show. It's an amazing name.
Thank you, Lance.
Oh, no. Just stating the obvious over here. We met at CrimeCon, and it's always rough to say, like, welcome to the show, because what we talk about is centered on a tragic moment in your life. So when we say welcome to the show, we really do mean it. Like, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking this story on to this show so that we can get as many eyes and ears on it as possible. But can you introduce yourself to the listeners, a little bit about your background?
I sure can. Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Lance, for this opportunity to speak with you all today. My name is Wilveria Sanders. I am from Rembert, South Carolina. I was born and raised in Rembert, South Carolina. I am 35 years old, and I have an amazing family. I'm on this journey to help search for my brother, get justice for his case. I'm also here to help other victims' families that have either have a missing loved one or have a case that is unsolved, and they are the voice for their loved one. So it's my mission. It's everything that my vision is to be a voice for my family's case, my brother Shelton, and for others out here suffering the same loss and grieving the same as my family. So I want to thank you all and your listeners today for this opportunity.
Wow, well, thank you. And
Yes.
yeah, can you tell us a little bit about your work advocating for your brother's case and other cases as well? We mentioned we met you at CrimeCon just recently, and it's great to see you traveling almost across the entire country to get there, and trying to spread the word about your brother's case so many years after he went missing. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
I sure can. My brother went missing on June 19th, 2001, and my father, William Sanders, was heavily involved into this case with law enforcement. My dad was a magistrate judge at the time, and I saw how my dad put a lot of energy into trying to solve this case by himself, because law enforcement, unfortunately, they have other cases that they're trying to solve. And not only was my dad a magistrate judge, he was also a father. And so he did all that he could. And in 2018 is when I took over in the case, 10 years after we had a hung jury in my brother's trial, Mark Richardson versus the state of South Carolina, Shelton Sanders case. I was 28 at the time, and to backtrack, I was only 11 years old when my brother went missing in 2001. So when I became of age to take over this case myself, because my parents had gotten old and older and health issues started arising, I just took it upon myself to say, hey, it's time for me to bring justice. My parents really want to see, what happened to my brother, where he is, what happened to him. They deserve closure. So I heard about this wonderful conference event called CrimeCon. couple of years back, as I was doing podcasts, I was putting billboards out, yard signs, flyers. I was traveling all over trying to get that public awareness from my brother's case. And it was a nonprofit organization, and this lady was working, helping with other missing cases. And she said, "Have you heard of this event called CrimeCon?" And I'm like, "No, what is that?" And so I started doing my research, and I was seeing how, how much publicity this is getting out. Other media content was going to be there. Other victims' families were going to be there. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is the perfect opportunity for me to get my brother's information out there. But the first year that I heard about it, I didn't attend. I believe that was in Las Vegas when I first heard about it. And then the next very year in 2023, it was going to be in Orlando, Florida. So I reached out to CrimeCon saying that I wanted to be a volunteer. So I was a volunteer in 2023, and let me tell you, Tim and Lance, it was amazing. It was amazing just being in those ballrooms, meeting people, helping out, and going into the hall to see other victims' families, advocating for their loved ones. So I said, definitely next year when we were in Tennessee, I'm going to put Sheltons out there. I'm going to have a booth set up, and so that was wonderful. Then this year, this past time, it was going to be in Denver, Colorado. And I'm like, I'm doing it again. I want to volunteer and I want to have a table for Shelton. So I have met such an amazing crowd of people, other families, and I always reached out, not just to the creators, content creators, but to the families. Hey, if there's anything that I can do, if I can provide you any resources, please let me know. Here's our journey. Here's what we've been through. This is what we're doing. It's been a long upcoming 25 years since Shelton's disappearance. And I love connecting with people. I just love people. And so, this has been a long journey, 25 years. Coming June 19th, 2026 will be 25 years. I've, since 2001, my family has had the cash reward. Before it was like $20,000, $25,000. Now it's $50,000 for any information that could lead to the remains of Shelton. I manage his tip line. I have a phone that people can call, 803-427-4209. I also have a personal email for him, findingsheltonsanders@gmail.com, where I'm managing those tips, because previously, when law enforcement was working those tips years and years ago, a lot of those tips weren't looked into. A lot of the balls were dropped. It was just a lot of confusion. And I understand, we worked with law enforcement and they tell us like, hey, we have other unsolved homicides. We other have current missing people that we're looking into. So I took it upon myself and I'm like, hey, I want to work with law enforcement. Let us team together. So it's been an amazing journey, trying to, do all I can to help law enforcement team up with other nonprofit agencies and just be a voice for my brother and other people. So yeah, I've been really busy since 2018. It's a long 7 years of busy work, creating my own case file for Shelton. I carry everything with me, all of the documents that was collected since 2001. We went through all of the case files and my dad's notes, and I just say, hey, this is what was done, this is what's going to be done, and this is what we need to do. So I have a timeline, I have a list of events and sequence of order of how we're going to do it, what we should have done, what needs to be done. So it's been good to put work with law enforcement with a new set of eyes and kind of, give a new touch, a new feel to it. And like I said, I feel like we're moving. We have a little bit more movement than what we had, attraction than what we had before. So it's been good. It's been good.
Yeah, that's great. And it's great to hear that you've been so productive and you've found CrimeCon to be such a useful resource for you. It
Absolutely.
really is the purpose of CrimeCon. And looking forward to seeing you next year, hopefully, there.
Las Vegas. Yes,
in
absolutely.
Vegas.
Yes,
can't say no
absolutely.
to that. But you started off, one of the first things you said was that you have an amazing family. And I'm wondering if we could go back to your family and the time that you and Shelton experience together with your family. And how did his disappearance bring you guys closer? Because it sounds like you're closer.
Right. My brother was the apple of my family's eye. He was, oh my goodness, he was everything. He was the perfect son, nephew, cousin, brother, friend. My brothers, other I have three, so it's three brothers and together, and then Shelton is my middle brother, so it's three. Three brothers, one older than Shelton, and then the next one. And he's always been like a father figure to us. When my dad was at work, Shelton would be that one that was make sure that we're doing our homework, we're, studying, we're cooking, we're cleaning, we're doing the yard. So he was just that one that kept the family together. He was an assistant for my mom, helping her out around the house. My brother would give you his shirt off his back. He was a Dallas Cowboys fan. He was, oh my goodness, there was so many things about him. He was in school attending the University of South Carolina. His major was information and technology. He was a systems manager at a program through his school. He loved that job. I even went to visit his supervisor, that they're still there. They said they miss Shelton tremendously. All of the psychiatrists and psychologists miss him dearly because he used to fix their computers. So he is loved and missed by all his teachers. I've met a lot of his teachers, his professors at his college. They miss him so. I've read through a lot of his writings that he in literature classes, and I saw that he loved to write, he loved to read. So there's so many attributes of Shelton. I was also told that he wanted to raise cattle, um, which is it was funny that I read that on one of the witness statements. One of his friends said that Shelton aspired to be to raise cattle and own his own business. And I'm like, what? You want to raise cattle? So he was a fun person. He loved cookouts. He loved to cook on the grill. He was just a helper. And the night that he went missing, unfortunately, he was helping out with a friend, trying to scout rooms for a bachelor party for his best friend that was getting married that July. So Shelton was always that one person that people can depend on to do their tasks or needing help with something. He was there. He was helping out in the community. He was a part of different organizations with Boy Scouts. He was also a part of the band. He played the drums, and he played football in school. He graduated from high school in 1993, Dazzle, South Carolina. He actually went to school with a famous NBA player that's now retired. So he was just loved and missed by so many. And so he was a wonderful person. And to answer your question, this case with him going missing has drawn our family, even extended family, closer together because they're calling, they're asking what can they do to help, they're asking for updates on Shelton's case. Is there anything, they're also giving me tips on what I could do better. And so, and then, as my parents have gotten older and sick, I've come home to help take care of them, and I've gotten even more involved in the case and, keeping my parents up to date with what's going on. And it's giving them a peace of mind, like, hey, someone is trying to bring justice, even though we can't physically do it anymore. I'm still here. And my kids, I have two girls, they're 8 and 6, and they're always wanting to be a part of, Shelton's getting justice for their Uncle Shelton, even though they've never met him. They're like, oh, Mom, tell me more about Uncle Shelton. How was he? And what did he do? And is it today's Uncle Shelton's birthday, and let's celebrate it. So we'll have cake and ice cream just as if he was still here. So Shelton turned 50 years old this year, and we had a nice celebration for Shelton. We had a commemoration celebration for Shelton here at our house in 2020. It was 20 years, so we had 300 or 400 people here. We had food trucks and games and music, and it was a full celebration of people who loved him. And so we've just been very active over the years of bringing Shelton alive, keeping his name alive, and letting people know that, hey, we're not stopping. We're going to keep at it until we can bring Shelton home.
I know he was a quite a smart guy. But it seems like he had a lot of friends as well.
A lot of friends. Yes, he did. That's right. College, and most of them were from high school, and then they all decided to go to college together. And so you know how young boys are, they want to, and girls too, but the guys, they met each other in high school and they want to pick the college that they want to go to keep it going, keep more years of being in friendship. So that's what he did. And USC is a pretty good school. It's a very well known school. And so I think he selected a great college.
And if you don't mind, I know it's difficult, but do you mind telling us about how and the circumstances of his disappearance?
Sure. So in June of 2001, Shelton went to school and he was working, summer school and working. And so the night of June 19th, 2001, Shelton had finished school and worked that day. He went to a friend's house on House Street in Columbia, South Carolina, where he was supposed to meet up with one of his friends to scout for hotel rooms for their friend that was getting married in July of 2001, which is Brian Gibbs. He was the groom, and my brother was going to be the best man. Well, that friend that was originally supposed to go with Shelton decided at the last minute that he couldn't make it. He said he had other plans with his girlfriend. And at that particular time, the defendant, the suspect in this case, Mark Richardson, had just gotten there maybe within the 20-minute, 30-minute time frame as Shelton. And he offered himself, well, since the other gentleman couldn't go, Mark took it upon himself to say, hey, I'll ride with you to go scout for these hotel rooms. Then Mark said, well, I just got off work. I can go with you. I just need to run to my house to change clothes. Well, Shelton said, okay, well, I'll come to your house and we'll ride in one car and then we'll go together. So shortly after, Shelton, it was maybe around 6:30 ish. Then they went to Mark's house. Mark had already changed out of his uniform to casual clothes. He and Shelton then rode together to three different hotel rooms in Columbia, South Carolina, to scout for these rooms. And then I want to say it was around 8:40 ish by the time between 8:40 p.m. and 8:45 p.m. when they went to the first hotel room. So there were three hotels that they went to in Columbia, South Carolina, and it was about 11 p.m. that Shelton called our home to speak to my parents, and I believe he talked to my mom. He was actually looking for my brother Edwin Sanders to let him know that, hey, I still have your car, because he was driving my brother's car, because his car, Shelton's car, was in the shop. So he was calling to tell my brother Edwin that, hey, I'm going to be late. I'll be back with your car soon. Well, he couldn't get a hold of my brother Edwin, and so he called the house phone to talk to my mom, and he let my mom know that, hey, I'm coming in late. I'm out scouting for hotel rooms, and I'll be back. That was the last time that my parents heard from my brother. There was nothing after that. No more communication was heard from my brother. That next morning, I would say about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, my dad woke up from a dream of gunshots being heard in his sleep, and it was a dream. And he heard my brother calling out for help. So that startled my father. He got up out of bed, looked outside, and didn't see my brother's car. So he pretty much yelled up to my brother, who's the upstairs home. He yelled upstairs and said, Edwin, is Shelton up there? And my brother said, no, he's not here. So, my brother kind of eased my dad's mind, saying, look, he's probably out. He may come home later. Maybe, he's with his friends, or, my dad and my brother just didn't know this. They just give it a couple hours. Maybe he got sleepy, overslept, and slept at his friend's house or something, and then he'll be back in the morning. Well, my parents got up around 6 or 7 o'clock, time to go to work. Still no car outside. So that's when my parents really got worried. Well, I was only 11 years old in summertime, and I had basketball practice. My mom still had to take me to basketball practice. She still had, a small child to raise. So she took me to basketball practice, And I remember her letting me know that when my dad was calling, just calling everywhere, he was calling law enforcement, he was calling the jailhouse, he was calling um, Shelton's friends that he knew of. And then I guess at some point of that day, my mom came back home and she started calling hospitals. Initially, she was going to call his teachers and his co-workers and his boss, but they had already called our house asking where is Shelton because he's never missed a day at work. He's never missed class. Is there something going on? And they did not know. They said he hadn't come home. There was nothing that they hadn't heard anything. My dad called a missing to call into a missing person report to Sumter County, where we live in our county, and they told us you have to wait 24 hours, and it hadn't been 24 hours. So we waited and waited, and as far as I'm just pretty much telling you all with what my family told me at later on at the time, because I was too young to understand what was going on. I was only 11, so I wouldn't have been able to comprehend anything. But I knew it was strange because I did not see my brother that evening, and he did not come home.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program.
So on June 20th, my dad started calling around again saying, hey, has anybody seen Shelton? A lot of his friends were saying he was last seen with Mark Richardson. They went scouting for rooms. I mean, the heat was pretty much turning up at this point because my family was getting concerned. They've not seen Shelton. It's never been this long of a period that they haven't seen my brother without any kind of communication. So that's when my dad called law enforcement. He made an official police report because it was past the 24-hour period. My dad did make contact with Mark Richardson, the defendant, and that communication did not go well. So when he called Mark Richardson, because he instructed my brother, Edwin, to give him the phone numbers of all of Shelton's friends. So that's how he was able to get Mark Richardson's phone number. He called Mark and very polite and very nice spoken. My father said, hello, Shelton is missing. We haven't seen him. And, the friends that you all have as mutual friends said that he was last seen with you. Is there any information you can help us with to search? He got very nasty with my father over the phone and said, why is everybody calling me about that damn Shelton? I didn't even like that Shelton. Don't call me anymore about him, and just hung up in my dad's face. So that was the end of that conversation. So my dad, still, searching for my brother. At this point, my dad started going to Columbia and was looking in the woods and searching in, flooded waters on his own, risking his safety, just going around looking for my brother. And, my dad was in the military. So he took his military equipment with him and just started looking and searching. Well, the very next day, on June 22nd, where June 22nd, my dad made another attempt to call Mark Richardson. And it said, hey, we're still looking for Shelton. It's been a couple of days. Shelton hasn't come home. You are last seen with him. And then he had another personality. He changed up. He switched up. He said, Mr. Sanders, I can do something better for you. I can actually come to your house and help you look and talk to you, and we can help look for Shelton together. So my dad said, okay, well, that's fine. He said, do you know where we live? And he said, yes, I know where you live. I've been to your house before. And so, okay, so he called he said that he was on the way. Then my dad calls law enforcement to let them know that, hey, the gentleman that was last seen with Shelton is coming to the house. So my dad requested for some backup just in case. So law enforcement came out to the house, and, they were on the way to the house. But before they got here, Mark Richardson had already made it to our house. And luckily my dad had it on record. He had a recording, and it was a recording. And, Mark Richardson was just saying, he doesn't know where Shelton is. Yes, he admitted that he was last seen with Shelton, but they went to go look for some hotels. And he said that Shelton didn't even stay at his house for a few minutes and then went back to Rembert. He said because he had to take his brother's car back. So he doesn't know where Shelton went after that. And so law enforcement came, they did an interview with him and took notes in our living room, and that was the end of that. There was nothing else. And so from there, Sumter County started taking their notes. They started interviewing other witnesses, which are the friends, to find out, hey, what was Mark Richardson's personality like? Did he ever say that he wanted to did he ever commit to a crime or any of that? And so what resonated with them is that they did state in their witness statements that Mark was pretty normal until 1999. So from 1993, when they first were introduced to them in at USC, they were all shared same classes. He was pretty normal from 1993 to 1999, and then in 1999 he had this personality switch where he said that he heard voices in his head, he heard his truck talking to him, and he had to get rid of his truck. He also heard that some voice in his head was saying, my friends are trying to get me, so let me get them before they get me. And so he would accuse them of trying to kill them. If one of them would put their hand in their pocket, he'll say, "What is that in your hand? What is that in your pocket? Are you trying to shoot me with a gun?" So he had these PTSD, psychotic, thoughts in his head. And, even my brother, the other brother that's still with us, he said that he has even met Mark Richardson on several occasions, and he would do the same thing. He would talk about his problems and what was bothering him. And it sounded like he was a very disturbed individual. He had a lot of things that he wanted to say and a lot of things that were bothering him. So he was suffering from some type of issue. So those witness statements were in place in 2001. Well, after that, the case went cold because there were anonymous tips that was given to my dad, and he had all these notes written down in his book, in his dresser drawer, and it was sheets of paper about this person said that Shelton could be in this particular body of water, in this particular he's hidden in these particular woods. But my dad went out and shared that information with law enforcement. Some of them they questioned, and some of them they said, "Nah, that's not an accurate tip, just throw it to the side." Well, my dad actually went out and he did it himself. He went into those bodies of water as deep as he could go, and he said he almost lost his life twice, but he didn't tell us that until later, that he went into these bodies of water to look to see if those tips were actually correct. And so in that time frame of 2001, no movement. 2002, my dad still pretty much did it on his own. He had weekly, monthly meetings with law enforcement, but they said that they were going to, like, for an example, look into Mark Richardson's second cell phone record, but they didn't do it. Now they did search one of his phone records, and it pinged off of different towers. They had that information, but they didn't do anything with it. Well, the case had a break in 2003. So in April 26, 2003, the Richland County Sheriff's Department in Columbia, South Carolina, got a tip. It was a noise disturbance tip out of Columbia that said, "Hey, there are guys outside of this apartment complex. They are making loud noises, music banging." So the sheriff's county department came out there, and they, went to the location where the beer bottles and all the music was, and they ran the tags of where they were sitting on top of a car, and then they discovered that it was connected to a missing persons case, and that was the car that Shelton was driving, which was my brother's car. So the case had a break. Our family was ecstatic. We thought that, oh my goodness, we're going to get a break in the case. We're going to find Shelton's body, because it was also said that Mark Richardson made a comment that if you find Shelton's car, or the car that Shelton was driving, you're going to find Shelton's body. Well, my parents thought initially, oh my goodness, Shelton's body is going to be there. When the law enforcement got there and checked the trunk, and they checked surrounding the apartments, questioning neighbors, there was nobody. There was nothing. So the Richland County Sheriff's Department requested that Sumter County please give us this case so we can take over. Then it became a battle between the jurisdictions of the case. No, this is our case. Sumter County was saying, no, this is our case. We started it. The case was with us first. It was with us for 2 years. Richland County was saying the car the evidence was found in our jurisdiction. And oh, by the way, Shelton was last seen in Columbia in Richland County. So this is our case. Well, they didn't want to give the case away. So my dad had to get involved and beg Sumter County, the county that we live in, to please work with Richland County so we can bring this case to a close. So it was almost a whole year before the case could be transferred over to the correct jurisdiction. Once Richland County got it, then we had a lead investigator named Walter McDaniels. He was the lead investigator on the case. He re-interviewed all of the witnesses, got their witness statements, and this was in 2003. So from 2003 to 2005, he collected a lot of circumstantial evidence around the case. He had interviewed everyone. And in one of the statements that Mark Richardson gave in this particular statement, he made a confession that was not recorded. And he said, "Can I ask you a question?" Mark Richardson is asking the lead investigator in the interrogation room, "Can I ask you a hypothetical question?" And he said, "Yes." Mark Richardson said, "Is there a such thing as an accidental death in the state of South Carolina?" And Mr. Investigator McDaniel said, "We can explain that to the Sanders. They just want to bring Shelton home." And he said, "I can't do that because I've already went to his people's house and told them and acted like I wanted to help find their son." And he said, we can, and like, Investigator McDaniels was saying, reiterating himself, we can get through this. The answers lie within you. You can tell the Sanders this to bring closure to them. And then Mark Richardson put his head in his palm of his hands and shook his head. And at that time, the other investigator that was helping out with Investigator McDaniels came into the room. Investigator McDaniels wanted to back brief what they were discussing, what him and Mark Richardson were discussing. And then Mark Richardson got his hand out of the palm of his hand and said, "I didn't say any of that," and then stopped. And he was like, he wanted to leave. He wanted to leave the interrogation room. And unfortunately, none of that was recorded. But it was stated when we went to trial in 2008, those statements were spoken on the stand under oath. And so that was in 2003. They gathered more information, more evidence. 2004, where they found the car. They took the cell phone tower that were initially where they did the pinging of the cell phone towers, and that cell phone ping was a 1 block away from where the car was found. So it was in the alibi that Mark gave, because I know in that interrogation room he asked him, "When Shelton left your house, where did you go?" And he said, "Well, I went to do the laundry at 12 midnight." He said he took his laundry and went to the laundromat at 12 midnight, and he met a prostitute, one of the prostitutes in his area. Mark said that her name was Rita Green, and he met her up with her, and they talked, and they were going to have sexual relations. And he said, "Well, I need you to drop my car off at my house so I can ride with you. I need you to follow me back to my house." So he dropped his car off at his house, and then he rode with her, and they had an argument on I-77, I-277, and that was his alibi for how his cell phone was pinged a block away from the where they found my brother's car. And so that story didn't check out. The prostitute didn't even know who he was, and so that story never checked out. So in October of 2005, there was an arrest. Mark Richardson was arrested for the murder and death of Shelton Sanders. He had a bond set for $150,000, which his family paid. They paid the 10%. He was out. I don't even believe he even stayed a day. I'm not sure the timeline of when the bond was paid, but I believe it was within a couple of hours to a day. And then the trial so it took us from October 2005 from the arrest to April of 2008 to get a trial. And the trial lasted a week and a day. We heard witness statements, evidence from different medical examiners, different specialists that were on the stand. And, on, that last day we heard the verdict, and the verdict was a mistrial. So we had 7 jurors that were white Americans. Those 7 jurors stated that Mark Richardson was guilty. And then we had 5 jurors that were African American, and they said that they were undecided. They said that they were undecided because there was no body. So, because, and this really made a lot of people very upset, because they were like, how was the trial racially divided? It seemed that as if those 7 jurors who were white were paying attention. They knew exactly what they were doing, because they listened, they heard the circumstantial evidence. They knew that Mark committed this crime, but the other jurors, we don't know what they were thinking. And so it really, really upsetted us. We've been, my parents, especially my parents, they have been very, very, very devastated since. And law enforcement told us after the trial that they were going to keep looking and keep searching and collecting more evidence, and so we can go back to trial. Nothing. Tim, Lance, we had heard nothing. So 10 years later, 10 years later, I said, hey, I have a 1-year old and a 2-year old. It's time. It's time for me to get involved and find out what's going on. So I picked up the phone and I called law enforcement, and I said, and I spoke to the cold case detective, and I said, and the lead investigator at the time, and I said, hey, Investigator McDaniels, what's going on? It's been 10 years since we went to trial. You said that you were going to pick up this case and you're going to continue with it. And he said, oh, there was, hey, we have the homicides, the current ones, we're backlogged. And it was, those were what I wouldn't say excuses, but that was the reasoning of what I got. And I said, okay, I understand that you all have other cases and you're probably busy. Well, I am wanting to get involved. I may not be an employee, but I'm the family member and I want to get involved. So I started reviewing my brother's cases through what my dad had, and I asked Investigator McDaniels, and I said, "Can I go to your office? Let's meet together, and I want to review that entire case file that you all have, everything." So I went in there and I started reading and going over with my parents. They were in the room with us, and I said, the things that I was not familiar with. I said, Dad, do you recall this? What was the outcome of this? So I was able to create my own case work of what I needed to do, what already happened, and what do we need to do moving forward. And I do remember calling all of my brother's friends that were involved, the witnesses, and I said, "Hey, let's have a chat." They knew me since I was a kid. They said, "Oh, I knew you since you were 3 years old, so you're like a little sister to me." So we created a bond. I feel that one of my brother's friends, she was the best man in the groom's wedding. We're extremely close, and so if I have a question, I know he's going to tell me the right answer. I don't care how bad it is. Tell me what happened, what was during those circumstances, that time when my brother was still around, and do you know this, or do you believe this? So we would have those connections. And with law enforcement, we meet monthly. What's the status? What's the updates? So we've met other professionals that work with the Richland County Sheriff's Department, even those the ground sonar that they use to go inside of the ground. Even the divers have went in certain bodies of water that was never searched. So I have been instructing them to do air and water and ground searches. And so we haven't had any luck yet, but I feel that we're going to get closure soon. They always tell me, how wonderful I am. It's a breath of fresh air to have a family member to work with them, because a lot of family members do give law enforcement a hard time. And I'm like, listen, it's not your fault that my brother went missing. I guess it's your job to help solve murders and crimes, but I'm here as well. I can help with that. So, and it's an honor. And so my whole take out of this is that my brother has been missing since 2008. And in 2018, I'm sorry, he was missing since 2001. And we had a trial of a hung jury in 2008. And since 2018, I have had this fire burning desire to give my all into this, just do everything I can. So I drove down the road and I saw billboards of, just advertisements. And I'm like, I can do that for my brother. I'm going to put a billboard out there for my brother. And then I started doing yard signs. And during the elections, I would see people's face on their yard signs. And I was like, I'm going to do that for my brother. Every idea I thought that, no, I haven't seen anybody do before, I'm going to do it. And so I started doing the podcast, other events. They have these nonprofit agencies that we meet every Thursday to talk about, it's Crime Victims Hour, where we tell them what we've gone through, what we're facing, and what things, what other resources are out there. I've done, I try to be a part of that. And speaking to other crime victims, they're telling me their story, how frustrated they are with law enforcement. And trust me, I've been there. My family has been there. The majority of crime victims, I believe, there are, I guess, commonality is law enforcement. There is always something that we're disappointed in law enforcement, or they didn't do, or something didn't happen. But helping crime victims, tell them about other events and help sponsoring them and helping them with billboards, or, just handing them resources and telling them what may help. I enjoy that so much, because not only do I want justice, I want them to have justice too. And so also started doing FOIAs. FOIA is, the Freedom of Information Act, is where I would do that for everywhere. I did that for his school. I wanted to know his grades. I did it for his job. Is there any information at his work that you can give me? I did it for every agency that was involved in his case: Sumter County, Richland County, DNR, Department of Natural Resource. Everybody that put their hand in Shelton's case. I wanted to know the information that was collected so I could have it. Every case file that was out there, I tried to FOIA everything. And so when I got that information, I started reviewing everything to see where I could connect the dots. With all that information, that led me to say, I need a tip line for my brother, because I see all of these agencies and I see all of these anonymous tips that we're giving to these agencies, and a lot of them went nowhere. It went absolutely anywhere. I mean, what really sparked it was there was this one in a case file, and I'm just going to share it. It was one, I can't remember the person's name, but I still have it. She said, I believe that your brother, and it was almost like the person was there, whoever wrote it was an anonymous tip, and it was written in a letter. It was written to my parents in 2001. Your son was picked up at the Greenbrier Apartments, an apartment complex in Columbia, in a red vehicle, and was driven away by, the defendant and some other guys.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program.
This was written to my parents in 2001. Your son was picked up at the Greenbrier Apartments, an apartment complex in Columbia, in a red vehicle, and was driven away by, the defendant and some other guys. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I asked law enforcement, hey, this tip that was mailed to you, did anybody look into this tip? Because the descriptions that they were given was almost as if they were there. Did anybody, then they would say, I don't believe that was looked into. That may have been somebody who we thought that knew what they were talking about. We put that to the side. That is when I said, it's time for me to have my own tip line, because if these anonymous tips were given, very descriptive tips, and people put it in, law enforcement pushed it to the side, that's not happening again. So I purchased a phone, and I gave it a phone number, and I said, this is going to be Shelton's tip line. And if anybody wants to reach out, they're going to talk to me, and I'm going to write down and record every conversation. And if they want to remain anonymous, that's fine. But I'm going to take their tip and I'm going to look into it just as if like my dad did. I also did the email, because now we're getting into the technology world. A lot of people don't make phone calls. They want to email. So that's fine too. Then I also created t-shirts for my brother, put his face on the t-shirt, information on the back, and I would wear it, have my family wear it. During COVID, we had masks with Shelton's face on it and information on the mask. Oh my goodness, we had pins, we had flyers, we had booklets that I was giving out even at the CrimeCon event. So we had like a bunch of information that, and most of it I was doing it on my own, because I feel like if I'm not doing it myself, I don't trust anybody to do, of course I don't mind help, but I feel like if I'm not the one actively involved in my brother's case, it's not going to be done right. So I'm very controlling when it comes to my brother's case. It's very delicate and it's sensitive to me, so I want to be involved. I want to do this. So it's just been an honor to do this. And right now, like I said, the cash award is 50,000, and next year, I'm increasing it to a higher amount if we haven't heard anything, and it's going to keep increasing until it touches someone to give us the information that we need for Shelton. I am extremely serious about getting closure for my brother's case. And my parents have already said that they forgive, and we wrote that in letter. That's another thing I've done. I've wrote letters to Mark Richardson and his family, his sister, his brother, and his mom. His father is deceased, is what I was told. I wrote everyone a letter and I mailed it to their house, and I said, "We forgive you. We just want Shelton's remains. We want to know what happened." We even said, then back when the trial happened and now, that you don't have to serve any time. You don't even have to go to, we just want Shelton's in exchange. We just want the information, please. And I know he had the letter. I hired a private detective to give him that letter on recording. He received the letter. So I know that he's read it. So I've not heard yet a call from him yet. But like I said, I've been, doing that. I've put advertisement in the newspaper, in the state's paper. I've reached out to Facebook, nonprofit agencies that have their own Facebook pages, Instagram pages, all social media, putting him on social media. He has a page and a group, Finding Shelton Sanders. So I post everything that I'm doing for him, and I'm thanking all of the followers, all of the listeners, all of the content media producers, hosts like you all here at Crawlspace. I thank y'all so much, for everything, because honestly, this is the most movement that we've gotten since my brother's been missing. You know, the stuff that we did previously, we felt there was no traction. Now that we have, the attention of the media and the supporters, the listeners, and the world, now we feel like our voices are being heard. So I just thank you all for this opportunity, because I feel like it's almost like a dream come true that we're getting closer and closer to finding Shelton.
Yeah, well, anytime you need to or have information updates on Shelton's case, his story, the platform's yours. The platform is yours for whenever you need it. I just want to emphasize what you said there towards the end about offering forgiveness and offering a chance out. Like, you won't even serve any time for this crime. Like, I really, really hope that is something that Mark has taken into consideration, because I've never heard that. Like, we've covered a lot of these stories, and I've never heard a family say, listen, just let us know and you're good. We forgive you. It was an accident, whatever. Like, we are at the point now where we just want the remains. That's
right.
Wow. If Mark's listening, I don't think so, but you'll
Right.
never get this opportunity again. This is incredible that you all are doing that.
Yes, my family and I have said that we just want, in exchange for no time, just please tell us where the remains are. Where is he? Just take us to where his remains are so he can have a proper burial. And that's all we've ever seen. My parents, we put that offer on the table to his defense lawyer, and his defense lawyer said, no, we're not.
That's unbelievable. What?
Yeah, I don't. To this day, I will never understand it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand how someone can live like that, knowing that they've done this horrible act to someone, and they're living with it. I don't know. It's been a lot. And the thing is, I've not only did the letter, I put billboards in his neighborhood where the billboards are in the streets. I put yard signs at the entrance and the exit of where he lived, just not at his house, but on the outside of the residence in the neighborhood. I would put it there, but nothing.
Now, what is he up to now?
Oh, so I keep periodic checks on him maybe once a year. And so 2019 he lives in Greenville, South Carolina. And 2019 he was a part of a prostitution sting where he was arrested. 2022, 2023, I did a SLED background check. He had a couple of DUIs. My private investigator did a search on him as far as employment, and he has been keeping those temp services, getting jobs for temp services, 3 months, 4 months. And at that particular time, when my temp agency was involved, he didn't have a job at all. He had just gotten released from his temp job. And last year, the beginning of last year, I checked it one more time, and he's no longer living at the house with his long-term girlfriend that was with him at the time of the trial. They don't live together anymore. Now he's living with another female. So at a whole nother at another address. So I find it pretty, interesting that he isn't not able to keep a job, steady job, having DUIs. He was a part of the prostitution sting, and not able to be stable at where he lives. It's pretty alarming of what's going on. Um, but law enforcement is saying that they don't want to approach him until they have something solid, a confession or eyewitness saying that they saw him commit the crime. Because if they go to him now, they can just tell him anything, and they wouldn't be able to do anything with the information. So they want to have some strong, solid pieces of information on him before they approach him. So yeah, he's living in South Carolina. He's still living his life. I did get some information through another contact media who reached out to him. Tried to reach out to him but couldn't get a hold of him, but reached out to one of his best friends, and he said that Mark had 2 children. And I was surprised. I'm like, wow, he has kids. I'm saying that because you took a person's life, and now you're living your life having children, and your children are going to have to hear about you in the news and the media, and they're going to ask you questions about this. What are you going to tell them? And I also, a while back, I reached out to his neighbor, and I didn't tell them that he was a part of a crime or, a situation that he was in. I just said, hey, your next door neighbors, how are they? And he's like, oh, they're fine. They're okay. They have 2 kids, look like they're middle school, almost high school age. And I said, okay, so I did confirm that he does have, children. And, but he's no longer living at that house. He's living with someone else. So, yeah, the only thing I can do is just keep keep up with him and what he's doing. But it is very strange to me that he hasn't come forward yet and said anything.
Has he ever, to your knowledge, seeked any professional treatment for what seems to be, is it schizophrenia?
The only thing that we know is that his father and his mother put him out the house in the late 1990s and early 2000, maybe around 2000. They put him out of the house because he was having those bipolar schizophrenia episodes in their house, so they kicked him out. And his father said that his own father said that he was diagnosed when he was Mark's age, and that he felt that Mark would grow out of it because he believes that Mark pretty much got it from him, and maybe he'll grow out of it as if like he did. So we don't have any, and that's another thing that I was asking law enforcement. I said, did you talk to any medical, did you get any medical documentation on this? And they were like, no. The communicative styles and the information that the witnesses were given, that's pretty much just letting us know that he is suffering from, and his parents letting us know that he is suffering from some type of personality behavior trait. No kind of medical documentation on it, but
Wow.
yeah.
Parents of the year right there. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not a medical expert, but I don't think you really grow out of that.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, it's not like you're just acting out and you're gonna like a phase.
Right. That's what his dad said. And I don't know.
Well, and then they kicked him out. So you're
They kicked
having
him
the
out of the
same
house.
symptoms that I had when I was your age. So we're gonna kick you out. That's gonna help. That's wow.
Gosh, sometimes I just wish that I was this age or even 28 at the time my brother went missing. Oh my goodness. Either my brother would have been found, or half of this information that they just gave to my parents and let it fly by, like, oh yeah, such and such is this, and we think he's that, or that. None of that stuff would have just been said and flown off, off the hook. I would have dig deeper in every single thing. I would have fact checked everything. And like I said, by the time I got involved, so many years had passed. A lot of people retired. it, it was the odds against us in so many ways.
Well, it seems like you're still fighting and still up
Yes.
for the challenge, and I think that's great. And Mark can still be charged if
Yes,
that.
he can.
Yeah.
Yes, he can. Absolutely.
That,
He sure can.
That's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I'm moving so hard, because it's not like we have a not guilty verdict, because if we had a not guilty verdict, then we're just stuck. But because we have a mistrial hung jury, he can be tried again in the state of South Carolina.
So how does that factor in with your offer, the offer from your family to him?
Let's see. If he's willing to come up forward and let us know to us directly and tell us what he did with my brother's remains, then I would say, okay, we will have a conversation with my parents and say, is this offer still on the table? We're going to say no time spent in jail. And if they say yes, then that's fine. Now, if the law catches him, see, we're offering for him to come forward to us. Now, if law enforcement gets involved and they find evidence against him, of course they're going to charge based on what the state is going to do. So we wouldn't even have they may consider us and ask us what we want, but I highly doubt it. I highly doubt that they're going to ask us. Now, that's why we're offering him now, hey, if you come forward to us directly, we could say, okay, this is what it's going to be. But if law enforcement, as they're doing their investigative piece on this information, and they happen to find Shelton's remains on their own, or somebody comes to them and report a tip, or someone reports that you said something that, that you confessed, and they get it before us, then yeah, I'm not sure how that works. Our offer is still there on the table. Now, personally, myself, I really want justice. My parents, we're all Christians. We have a forgiving heart, but I pretty much try to honor my parents' wish. But me, yeah, I want justice to be served. However, and like I said, oof, yeah. I mean, I thought about, allowing him not to have any time, but I'm like, you took my brother's life, and you took my life and my parents' life away, because my parents got sick behind this. They had to stop working. They had to finish raising me. They were more protective over me. I couldn't do certain things. It he pretty much ruined my entire life, and so yeah. I just it's hard to come to terms with what I'm going to even think. And a part of me feels that he's never going to come, but I just don't want to say never. But some in my gut feeling is that I'm going to have to go out here and find my brother before somebody tells me where he is. I will have to look for myself. So, but yeah, that's where we are today. We'll just praying and hopeful that we'll get some answers.
Absolutely, yeah. Wow, well, Wilveria, thank you so much for spending some time with us here today. We really appreciate your time and just all your knowledge on the case and everything. Really behind you here, and wishing you and your family the best of luck for resolution.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Lance, thank you too.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity and reaching back out. It was so good to meet, at the Crime Con in Denver, and I look forward to seeing y'all again, in Las Vegas next year. So, and prayerfully, I'll have my parents there too.
Thanks a lot for listening. We really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. We'll be back next week with more new episodes.